right now. Okay, so we do have a quick little Zoom poll. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And when I say quick, it has one question and it's multiple choice and it's not a very difficult question. So it shouldn't take very long, but basically the point of it is for me to see generally your experience with PubMed. And it looks like we have the answers, and 2 people have not used PubMed. Several people have used it, but not often. So it seems like, for the most part, most people in here have not used PubMed much or not at all. We have a few people that have used it more than that. So that will sort of inform what I talk about to some extent. That being said, the point of today is basically to do more advanced searching stuff. So we'll get into that, but if you do not have much experience with PubMed, we will sort of bring you along with the basics and then show you the advanced things. And I am the library liaison to a number of areas. So what that means is I'm the research librarian for a number of areas, including the College of Human and Environmental Sciences, the Department of History, and then the Latin American, Caribbean, and Latinx Studies program. And now what we'll be doing is this. We'll largely be making sure that you know how to use PubMed in an effective and efficient way. If you have not used PubMed much or at all yet, I will show you some of the basic stuff as we move along to more advanced features, but you will definitely learn how to use PubMed's advanced search. You will learn more about PubMed's search filters, but also search fields. And then we'll sort of build towards using what's called PubMed's mesh database. Mesh database stands for the medical subject headings. It is the way that the PubMed is organized, and knowing how to use the mesh database or mesh subject headings is sort of the key to really becoming sort of a high-level PubMed user. On a more simple angle, I'll also show you about creating what's called an NCBI account. If you are using PubMed quite a bit, is probably worth doing that. So, as I mentioned before, a few times, I will monitor the chat, but again, for clarity, I'll probably most is ever having a problem seeing my screen or hearing me, please just let me know about that and I will rectify the situation. Okay, so along those lines, I'm going to go ahead and get started showing you more about how to use PubMed. I'm going to do a new share and share a browser. So that I can start to talk to you about what PubMed is and how we can go about using it in an effective way. PubMed, one thing to point out is that PubMed is not necessarily a library database. It is something from the National Library of Medicine. I seem to be having sort of slow internet all of a sudden for some reason, so hopefully that rectifies itself soon. I do have some slides I can fall back onto if I need to. PubMed is not necessarily a library database, as I was saying, although there is a reason to access PubMed through the library's website or through the library tab on MyBama, and that is that you can gain access to more articles in that way. A lot of content on PubMed is open access because a lot of health, biomedical articles it's encouraged to be open access, basically. But if you go through So where to find PubMed on here, either on the library tab or on the actual library website, you can go to the databases link and just search for PubMed. And this is what you will see. So what is PubMed? One thing I will sort of talk to y'all about today is the importance of kind of getting to know a database if you really want to be an expert searcher of that database. So a lot of times there will be an about section and also a help section or a user guide. I will show you that in a second. But as far as what PubMed is specifically, like I was saying, it's from the US National Library of Medicine. It contains over 32 million citations about biomedical literature. It technically doesn't include full text of articles, although you can get links to the full text of articles through PubMed. And again, this is an open resource. This is something that anyone could use. But because of your affiliation with Alabama, you may have access to more articles than someone that does not have an affiliation with the university. As far as what I was mentioning, the help guide, we are not going to go through this, but I will recommend there are always video tutorials or there are always a help guide for a database where they will just talk about some things like, some search tips, because all databases maintain some common themes or some common elements, but they are also all different in some ways. So if you're not familiar with PubMed, it may be similar to some other library databases you've used, but it's not going to be completely the same. So the help document or tutorials can be a useful thing. One thing I will point out, not to like overly self-promote, I will post this in the chat. We do have a PubMed research guide. And this research guide is basically just some quick tutorials. So it will be some things that I'll talk about during today, but more bite-sized information. So if you need just a quick thing, you could come back to this. I will post this in the chat if anyone needs to use this, because these will just be short video tutorials that again can kind of help you at point of need. So what is PubMed? We've already sort of talked about that. Now, how do we use it? For people that have not used PubMed at all, the sort of basic way that you use PubMed, the basic way that a lot of students would use it, and even that I will use it from time to time, is just to use the basic search. So if you go on here and you are researching, the basic search is similar to a lot of databases out there. So let's say you're looking for type 2 diabetes, and maybe you're looking for sugar sweetened soft drinks. You can do just a general keyword search. This is not very high level searching on PubMed by any means, but you can use it. You may find this brings back some good articles. Maybe it brings back not too many. Maybe I could experiment with these keywords. But in general, the basics of a PubMed basic search are not that different than a lot of databases. You have search filters on the left side of the screen. I think it had some search filters already filled out. I'm going to clear those. So a very basic thing with PubMed is that, like a lot of databases, it does have search filters on the left side of the screen if you want to sort of be more specific and narrow down your search. So like a lot of databases, you can control the publication date. So you could look for articles from a certain year, or you could go down and use their predetermined preset year ranges. Other search filters on here, the text availability is an interesting one. Like I was saying, a lot of biomedical literature, especially these days, is open access. So if you want to find free full text, you could click on that. One thing I will say though is that if you clicked on that, you might get rid of some articles that you could access because you were affiliated with Alabama. So my recommendation with the text availability is either click on full text or just kind of leave it to be. But these are sort of the basic search filters. You have article types, clinical trials, systematic reviews, etc. There are additional search filters. If you click over here, and in fact, there's a huge amount of them. You have a huge amount of article types that you could look at. You have species, language, sex. Age is maybe an especially useful one, I find. And what you do with this is you're not necessarily clicking the search filter over here, but if you click on one of these and then click show, it will just add it to the search filter screen. And at that point, then you could use a specific search filter you've added. So again, this is the basics of a PubMed search. If you click on article, you will get a fairly standard article record page. Over on the right, you have links to the articles, either an Alabama link or the free PDF link. You can get a citation here in a number of formats. You can send an article to a couple of different things. One, maybe a citation manager if you're using something like EndNote or RefWorks. The My Bibliography button works in tandem with your NCBI account, which I'll show you in just a second. And then there are some other things like you can see similar articles where they will basically recommend articles to you that should be on a relatively similar topic. So none of this is advanced PubMed searching really, but these are sort of the basics if you haven't used PubMed much, and we'll just kind of continue to build on these as the workshop goes on. So let's do that. One thing I'll quickly show you is an NCBI account. Now, this is something that I would recommend if you are using PubMed quite a bit. I will just go ahead and show you kind of the basics of this. They have some sort of important changes coming up. Like most people, I will ignore those changes until they really take effect. But here, I have created an account before. If you have not, then you would just need to create a new account. But I will show you what this looks like. So if you click on your account name, we'll come back to some of this as we go along, but most of the reasons for creating an account are located on the dashboard. And what you can do with this, and again, I'll sort of come back to it as we go along, is you can do a few things. One, you can save articles, as we were saying, with the send to My Bibliography, as you can see over here on the left. You can click on Manage My Bibliography or click on the items, and this will just be links to the actual articles. Also, you can see your search history or your recent activity going back 6 months. You can even just click on some of these searches to rerun them. And then probably the reason to create a PubMed account, I think at least, if you were using it quite a bit, are saved searches. So especially if you are coming back to a research project on and off, you can save searches. And what this will do is not only can you just rerun them anytime you want, but you can set up alerts so that anytime a new article is published that matches your specific search parameters, you will get notifications, email notifications of these articles. So let's say you're working on something like a systematic review or even just a pretty thorough literature review. This is sort of a must in some ways because you will want to know if new things have been published, and we can show you how to do that as we go on with this workshop. For now, though, I'm going to go back and look more at PubMed. So we talked about the basic search, we talked about creating an account, but again, as we were saying, the main point of today is we're kind of showing you some advanced searching features. And what we'll talk about with those are PubMed's advanced search, and we'll talk about Boolean operators, we'll talk about search fields, and basically all aspects of PubMed's advanced search. And then we really are building towards talking about the mesh database or the mesh system. And again, as we mentioned earlier, the mesh stands for the medical subject headings, and is how PubMed is organized. And if you know how to use subject headings, you can really do kind of high-level PubMed searching. Again, though, we've sort of thrown a few things at you already. So if you have any questions, please just let me know, either via the chat or just asking. But if you do not, I will start to move towards talking about the advanced search. And along with that, we'll sort of start tying in using the mesh database. PubMed's advanced search is a little different looking than a lot of other advanced searches. If you look here, you can also see it gives you your search details and your search histories. You can just quickly rerun searches as you go. But when I say it looks different, it's because of a couple of things. One, you don't just type into multiple search bars. You're putting search terms in here and then adding them to what they call a query box. So what we'll talk about with the advanced search, really how you can unlock the advanced search is through Boolean operators and search fields. And both of these are sort of database 101 type things. Most databases, or almost all databases, incorporate both of these concepts. So I guess I will talk about search fields first. Search fields are right here. And the default on any database usually is all fields, or some sort of interchangeable term for all fields. And what that means is that the words that you put in to a search box, they are searched for in all areas of the article. They are searched for in the text of the article, they are searched in the title of the article, in the abstract of the article, and so on and so forth. So if you are searching for something like hypertension, and you ran a search for all fields, on PubMed's advanced search, you click on add, and you add with and, or not, which are the Boolean operators, which we'll get back to in a second. And then you click search. So this is like the most basic search you'll ever see. Almost no one is ever going to search for just hypertension. But I do want to point out, you get a lot of results, 555,000. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, this is a super broad search. And two, because of the all fields, because of the searching all fields. If you want to be more precise in some ways, or want to look for more specific information, you can use some of the other search fields they have to offer. Now, this can be a little overwhelming in some ways because there are a lot of them. Obviously, author would be one. You could look for a specific author. You can look for journals. You can look for mesh terms, which again, we will talk about more and more as we go along. The interesting thing about this is that you're probably not using most of these extremely often. You might use the author search field. You might use the title search field. You might use the text word search field. Some that I find especially useful are text word, mesh terms, which again we'll come back to, title, and title abstract. So something like title abstract, the difference with this is if you put in hypertension, you are just searching for that word in either the title of an article or the abstract of an article. You're not searching in the actual text of the article. So hopefully, if it's in the title or the abstract, it's a bit more specifically about hypertension. And because of that, it's a little bit more precise and you get fewer results. You still get a lot, you still get over 400,000, but again, that's primarily because it's still a very broad search with only one search term. So I do find these quite useful. I myself, when I'm working with students or faculty members, I probably use more often title, abstract, or mesh terms more often than any others, but they can be quite useful. So it's important to kind of get to know these and what they do. Again, text word would just be looking for it within the text of the document, and title abstract obviously is just in the title or abstract. So these work in conjunction with the Boolean operators. So we did a search for hypertension earlier. We can do that again, but I will point out these more now. Every database has these Boolean operators, and, or, and not. They are relatively simple in some ways. If you add with and, what you are basically trying to do is find the relationship between two terms. So if I looked for like dash diet, for example, I would want to add with and because I want to find the middle ground between these two terms, hypertension and the dash diet. So if I click search here, now we're all the way down to 497 results. Because I've done a bit more specific, I of course wouldn't have to use a title abstract search, but I've done that. I've combined these two terms. It's a lot more specific. Or just looks for either term. So it's especially useful if you were trying to find related terms. So you might do something like hypertension. You could combine this with a sort of a synonym, like high blood pressure. And then this would look for either of those terms. You could then add in a search term like dash diet and combine it with and go on from there, basically. So I find and or are the ones that people use the most often, not just gets rid of a specific search term. So if I wanted to look for, maybe I wanted to look for COVID-19, but I don't care in this case about vaccines. I want to find out something about COVID-19 that's not related to vaccines. I could click add with not, put in vaccine. And so now I would just be searching for COVID-19, not vaccine. There should be no articles that come up that are about the COVID-19 vaccine. It should be everything is just related to COVID-19, everything else except for vaccines. So this is all sort of normal database stuff to some extent. The only real difference with PubMed is just sort of their search builder and the query box. But these are fairly basic database functions for the most part. One thing that is interesting with PubMed, as I was talking about earlier, they show you your search history. You could just click on the results if you want to go back to an earlier search. But also you can kind of combine these. As you see, with all of your previous searches, they're given a number. So if you went back through here, let's see, I searched a long time ago for neoplasms and I searched for cancer. Basically the same thing. This would be a fairly standard or search and then combine it with something else. I could look at this and this is search number 17 and this is search number 15. I could just go up here, type in number 17, and you'll see where it kind of changes to recent query. You could add number 17, type in number 15, add this with or, and this would be a search for cancer or neoplasms. And then if you went back, maybe you could put in something like the most recent search, which would be that one, number 26, put that in the search box, and then type in a different search term, basically. I can't think of a good example, so I'll just use chemotherapy. And that would be number 26, which is cancer or neoplasms, plus another search term. So it just lets you kind of use your search history, keep track of it, rerun searches. And if you have an NCBI account, you can even keep more track of those searches, basically. And you can, like I mentioned before, create search alerts, which are just really, really, really helpful if you're doing serious research. How you do that is you just go up to the top of the screen here, and then under the search bar, there will be a create alert button. And you'll have your save search, neoplasms, yada, yada, yada. Would you like email updates of new search results? So if an article is published next month and is indexed in PubMed, and it's an article that you would find by searching for cancer or neoplasms and chemotherapy, you will get an email that just shows you this article, sends you a link to it, basically. So I have used this before when helping out with a systematic review, because you do research, but you need to keep track of newer stuff. It's very useful. It seems to work very well. So I would really recommend this, especially if you're working on a research project over a matter of time, something you were sort of working on, taking a break from, coming back. You have all sorts of options here. You can get an update. I guess you could daily if you really wanted to. I don't know a whole lot of people that would get it daily, but you get monthly or weekly. You get result format. And it's just a way of keeping track with what is published. So it doesn't even have to be for one specific research project. It could just be for your research area, basically. You could save searches related to your research area, some research projects you have, and you will just be alerted to new articles. You could even set a search alert for just a journal. Just go to PubMed's advanced search, search for a journal, find one, and set up a search result that just shows you when that journal publishes a new article. It could be just another way of getting notifications about an especially important journal in your field. That is a fair amount of what I was going to talk about with advanced search. I do want to talk a bit about the mesh subject headings. So I'm going to move on to that because that's a very important thing with PubMed. But again, if you have questions, let me know. And if not, you'll definitely have time for questions when we finish up. So the mesh subject headings. I'm going to show you a quick example. So let's say I'm going to look at this article. Every article on PubMed, if you scroll over to the right, you will see a little link that says mesh terms. This can be very vague if you don't know what mesh is. Basically, what these are, the medical subject headings, they are how PubMed is organized. These are standardized terms, standardized subject headings. So for example, chemotherapy, I don't know why I chose one that I struggle to pronounce, biomarkers, tumor. That is not a subject heading that is just for this one article. That is a standardized subject heading. So this article could be the only article with this combination of subject headings, but these subject headings that you'll see are just standardized ones. And what they are descriptive terms that are used to organize a database. So this article is published, it goes to PubMed, and it is assigned these mesh terms so that is a way of organizing the database, but also as a way of showing you what this article is about. You'll see it has a number of them. As you can see, though, a couple have asterisks. So what that means is these are the major headings. So oxalic acid therapeutic use. That is what this article is mostly about. And when I say these are standardized, you can click on any of these. So for example, pancreatic neoplasms drug therapy. I can click on this and click search in PubMed. And what happens is it brings back 2,500 results. What I know about all 2,500 results is that every single one of these was tagged with this term, pancreatic neoplasms drug therapy. So in turn, what I know is that all 2,500 of these results are about that. So just that makes it a more precise way of searching than a keyword search, because you know for sure that this is what it's about, basically. And it's not a question of experimenting with search terms. It's how PubMed is organized, and it's the way of using PubMed, basically. All I've shown you so far is just clicking on an article and seeing them. I'll show you in a second how to find mesh subject headings and how to search with them. But I wanted to start with this to kind of show you what they are, and why you might use them. And in fact, I'll go back really quickly to the PowerPoint, just in case I'm not making it clear. But why use subject headings? Since they are the way a database or catalog defines a topic, searching by subject can be a more precise way to find the information you are looking for. So it's a descriptive function, and it's a way, it is basically, again, as I said, the way the database is organized. And then there are also some other benefits to using it, which is one is it gets rid of the synonym problem, which is if you were doing keyword searching and you were looking for a term, you often have to kind of experiment with keywords to find all of the articles on your topic, because each keyword that you search for will bring back different results. Subject headings are not like that, basically. Subject headings are more automated systems. So when you search for a subject heading, you find all 2,500 articles that have been tagged with that subject heading. So how do you search with PubMed subject headings? You can just go up to the advanced search and click on mesh major topic or mesh terms or mesh subject heading. And they've gotten pretty good at automating this, so you don't really have to know all of what these subject headings are. For example, if you went on mesh terms and typed in cancer and click search, what it would do, it should find subject headings about cancer, even though they are likely, the actual subject heading is going to be neoplasms. So they've gotten sort of good at mapping your terms to a subject heading, but really the easiest way to find a PubMed subject heading is just go back to the main page and go to the mesh database here under Explore. So you could just sort of bypass the basic search or the advanced search, because again, this is a major way of searching on here. So if you want to find a subject heading, let's say I wanted to search for high blood pressure, it would map me to the subject heading it wants me to use, which in this case is hypertension. So from here, you could just search with these subject headings. This is an absolute must if you're doing something like a systematic literature review. A keyword search isn't really enough for that. For a systematic review or a very extensive literature review, you will want to use the subject headings. And this is the way you can find them, and you can search directly from here. So I could just click on Add to Search Builder and search PubMed, and it would find all 292,000 results that have been tagged with the subject heading mesh hypertension. So every single article in here would be about hypertension, basically. Of course, that's still a very basic search in some ways. So if we go back, I can explain a few more things about this. One, you have subheadings. Two, you have an ability to restrict to mesh major topic. So what that would do is just make it so that hypertension is the primary focus of the article. And then you can look at what's called the mesh hierarchy. I'll start with restrict to mesh major topic. So if I click on that and click add to search builder and then search PubMed, it's down from 290,000 articles to 215,000 because all of these articles, if you click on the mesh terms link, you should see next to hypertension an asterisk, meaning this is the major concept in the article. Still, that's a more basic search than most people will be doing. So what you could do, you could add hypertension to search builder, and then you could use the search builder in a couple of different ways. One, you could just add a keyword, like maybe DASH diet, and then search PubMed. And you'll see you have your keywords up here. So it works in the exact same way as using the regular search engine would. Although the difference with this, hypertension, mesh, and DASH diet, is this is a much more precise search than just the keyword search, hypertension and DASH diet. Other things you could do though, if you added this to the search builder, you could then just search for another mesh term. So maybe you see, like, do they have a subject heading for the DASH diet? And it turns out they do. You could add this to the search builder with and, or not. In most cases, you would want to add it with and. And now you would have a purely subject heading search. You should get fewer articles. In fact, as you see, it's down to 83. And this is a very precise search. Like I can tell you, in these 83 results, there's not going to be a result in there that is a head scratcher, basically. There is not going to be an article in here that is just clearly not about hypertension and the DASH diet. It's a much more precise search. So that's some of the basics of the subject headings. The only other thing I would show you with this are a couple of quick things. One, the subtopics or subheadings. So instead of searching for just hypertension, you could search for hypertension, and maybe you are focused on diet therapy because you are a nutritionist or a dietitian. If so, you could just click on the diet therapy subheading, add it to the search builder, and then search for that. And that would be a much narrower search than just searching for hypertension. So it's worth looking at these subheadings. And then also a quick thing, without going too in depth about it, but these subject headings are organized hierarchically. So as you can see, hypertension is above some subcategories like hypertension malignant, hypertension pregnancy induced, hypertension pulmonary. You can, a search for hypertension, the subject heading, includes all of those below it. So if you did a subject heading search for hypertension, you would find articles about hypertension pregnancy induced. But you'd also find articles about renal hypertension, malignant hypertension, etc. So you can do two different things. One, if you're looking through this and you're like, oh, I'm looking, I actually am focused on pregnancy-induced hypertension, maybe I should just click on that. And then you could find the subject heading, add it to your search builder, and search for that. And that would be a narrower, more specific search. On the other hand, you could choose not to include all these subcategories. If you just wanted articles that were about the general concept of hypertension, you could click on this button above it that says do not include mesh terms found below this term in the mesh hierarchy. And that would get rid of a number of articles because it would get rid of stuff that was tagged with these more specific mesh headings, basically. So to kind of recap that, I do not think mesh headings are especially difficult to use once you get used to where the mesh database is and how to use it. I highly recommend it, especially if you're really using PubMed quite seriously. Is a more systematic, more precise way of searching. You can go through the mesh database, or you could go through the PubMed advanced search. The advantage of using the mesh database is you can kind of just get a more concrete feel of what the individual subject headings are, what the subcategories are, what the subheadings are, and maybe do a bit more precise search. But with a really serious research project like a literature review or systematic literature review, it's really almost a must to think about using the mesh subject headings because it's a much more precise way of searching. And with that, I think I have covered most of what I intended to cover. Hopefully that we started off with very basic stuff and worked through the advanced search and the mesh subject headings. Hopefully that has given you a decent idea of how to use PubMed. But we do have some time for questions. So if anyone has a question, please just let me know. You could unmute yourself and ask, or you could put it in the chat bar. Okay, no questions yet. If anyone has a question, again, just let me know. I will go back and share my screen again really quickly to point out a couple of things as far as resources. PubMed itself has a number of tutorials. Also, they have the FAQ and user guide here on the main screen. This can be quite useful. But as we were saying earlier, we also at the University of Alabama have a research guide on PubMed. If you are on the University of Alabama website, you can click on research guides right here in the middle of the screen and just search for PubMed. And you will find this PubMed research guide, which is not text heavy at all. In fact, it is just a series of short videos that could help with some certain aspects of it. Also, though, it has my contact information over here. So if you have a question about PubMed, you could send me an email or contact me in that way. So again, we have a few minutes for questions if anybody has a question, but if we don't have any, then that will be basically all we have for today.